Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into one of the single biggest transformations in all of human history.
You know, for almost all of our time on this planet, we're talking millions of years, our ancestors were hunter-gatherers. They were constantly on the move, following the herds, tracking the seasons. That way of life defined us for the vast majority of our history. And then, in what is basically a geological blink of an eye, all of that changed. This is the story of how we stopped wandering and started building the world we live in today. And it's a story we thought we knew, but as you're about to see, it's a story that keeps getting rewritten.
Okay, so let's get into it. First off, where did this whole idea of a great revolution even come from?
Well, the concept didn't just appear out of thin air. It was built up over about a century. First, back in 1836, we got that basic framework. The Stone, Bronze, and Iron Ages. Then, in 1865, a scholar named John Lubbock gave the new Stone Age a catchier name, the Neolithic. But the real spark, the big idea, didn't come until 1936. And that's thanks to this man, V. Gordon Childe. He was one of the most influential archaeologists of the 20th century, a real giant in the field. He was a master synthesizer, which means he was incredible at taking all these different, scattered ideas and weaving them into one big, compelling story.
Childe's big idea was this. The Neolithic wasn't just a small shift in technology. No, he said it was a full-blown economic revolution. He argued that inventing farming and domesticating animals was this complete package deal that created a totally new way of life. And for the first time ever, it allowed humans to finally stay in one place.
Now, this is the most crucial part of his theory. Farming came first. It was the engine that drove all the change. People figured out how to farm, they created a surplus of food, and only then did they settle down, build villages, and develop complex societies. Everything else followed from that one economic spark. It was a powerful, tidy idea that made a lot of sense. But, you know how science works. A new generation of archaeologists came along and started to ask a really simple but profound question. Was Childe even looking in the right place?
See, Childe thought this revolution must have started in these lush river valleys, like the Nile. Makes sense, right? Water, fertile soil, easy stuff. But in the 1940s, an American archaeologist named Robert Braidwood challenged that. His argument was just pure logic. He said, why would people invent farming somewhere they had to bring the plants and animals to? Shouldn't we be looking where the wild ancestors of wheat and sheep and goats actually lived?
And that simple question shifted the entire search. Braidwood's team started focusing on a new area he called the hilly flanks, the foothills and uplands of the Fertile Crescent. This huge arc of land was the natural habitat for the exact species that would become the foundation of agriculture.
And to test his theory, Braidwood did something that was pretty revolutionary in its own right. He put together a whole team of specialists, botanists, zoologists, geologists, you name it. And in 1948, they began excavating at a site in Iraq called Jarmo, determined to find the absolute earliest signs of farming.
Okay, let's fast forward a bit, because what Braidwood and his colleagues found next, up in southeastern Anatolia and modern-day Turkey, well, this is where the story completely changes.
So after Jarmo, Braidwood partnered with a pioneering Turkish archaeologist, Halit Çambel. Their joint project took them to a new region on the southern slopes of the Taurus Mountains. And the results they got? They were just incredible.
They didn't just find one little site. What they uncovered was an entire landscape just packed with ancient settlements. This wasn't a baby step towards a new life. This place was an absolute hotbed of innovation. At sites like Çayönü, they found evidence of large, highly organized communities. We're not talking about a few simple huts. They found sophisticated architecture, planned-out layouts, and huge public buildings that would have required a massive communal effort to create.
But here it is. This is the absolute game changer. The evidence showed that people were settling down, building these huge structures and creating complex societies before they became full-time farmers. They were still largely hunting and gathering, but they were doing it from a permanent home base. The settlement came before the farm.
I mean, that discovery just turned the old theory completely on its head. If farming wasn't the cause of people settling down, then what was? It suggested the real revolution might have started somewhere else entirely. And this is where thinkers like the French archaeologist Jacques Cauvin came in with a radical new idea. What if the real revolution wasn't economic at all? What if it was cognitive?
A revolution of the mind, a change in how people saw the world, a change in symbolism, in belief, in what it meant to be a community.
So think about this. It's a complete reversal of cause and effect. The old view was tech comes first. You invent farming, and that leads to settlement. But this new view says, no, the cultural and social changes came first. People gathered together for new symbolic or religious reasons. They built these incredible community centers, and then, to support these new, large, permanent towns, they had to invent a more reliable food source. Farming wasn't the cause, it was the consequence.
So, what this all shows is that archaeology is an amazing, dynamic field. The story of the past isn't set in stone. New evidence can completely flip what we thought we knew. The story of the Neolithic Revolution isn't just about inventing the plow anymore. It's a much more complex and, frankly, much more fascinating story about a revolution in human consciousness itself.
And that kind of leaves us with a final big question, doesn't it? If our understanding of something that happened 10,000 years ago can change so dramatically, what widely held beliefs do we have today about our economy, our society, even about ourselves, that might one day be proven completely wrong?